Today we're making 4 single-serving meals made from 1 pound of ground beef. Each of the recipes use a 1/4 pound of ground beef. Take the pound of ground beef and break it up into 4 4-ounce portions and put them in Ziploc bags or other airtight containers. You can store ground beef in the refrigerator if you're going to use it in 2 days, or it'll last up to 4 months in the freezer. The first recipe I'm going to make is baked ziti. This is the ultimate comfort food. Baked ziti is a simple casserole made with a zesty meat sauce, tender pasta, creamy ricotta, and mozzarella cheese. Let me show you how to make it. Heat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. While the oven is heating, bring a medium-sized pot of water to a boil over medium-high heat. Add 2 ounces of dried pasta, which is about 2/3 of a cup, and cook it until it's just tender. So the pasta we're using is ziti because this is baked ziti, but you can also use a similarly sized pasta like penne, rotini, or rigatoni instead. Drain and set the pasta aside. Heat 1 tablespoon of olive oil in a 10-inch skillet over medium heat. Add 1/2 cup of chopped onions, 1 clove of minced garlic, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/8 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and 4 ounces of ground beef, and cook, stirring occasionally until the meat is cooked through and no longer pink. This takes me about 8 minutes. The red pepper flakes are totally optional. I like using them because they add a little heat, but feel free to leave them out. Stir in 1 cup of marinara sauce and bring to a simmer. Remove from the heat, stir in the cooked pasta, and set the pan aside. Combine 1/3 cup of ricotta, 2 tablespoons of mozzarella cheese, 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt in a small bowl. Fold into the pasta meat sauce mixture. Spoon 2 tablespoons of marinara sauce into a lightly greased small baking dish. I'm using a 5-inch square baking dish, but you can use a 4x6-inch baking dish, a 6-inch round, or a similar sized baking dish. Top with half of the pasta meat mixture. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of shredded mozzarella over the noodles and add the rest of the meat sauce and noodles, and top with 2 tablespoons of mozzarella cheese and 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Cover and bake on the middle rack of the preheated oven for 20 minutes. Remove the baking dish from the oven and let it cool for 10 minutes before eating. Since these are single-serving recipes, you might wonder what to do with any leftover ingredients. Well, we actually list other recipes and ways to use up leftover ingredients so there's no waste. You can find that information in each of the recipe links below. Recipe number 2, 1 giant Italian meatball. Here's an easy recipe for a giant Italian meatball topped with tomato sauce and Parmesan cheese, made with just a few ingredients and baked in a small baking dish. This giant meatball is perfect on its own, surrounded by your favorite pasta, or sliced and enjoyed in a meatball sub. Let me show you how easy it is to make. Heat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Whisk an egg yolk in a medium-sized bowl until lightly mixed. I don't use the entire egg because that would make the meatball too moist. Save the egg white in the refrigerator and use it for one of our egg white recipes. The link is in the description below. Add 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese, 1 tablespoon of chopped parsley, 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/8 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and stir to combine. Add 4 ounces of ground beef to the egg mixture. Use your hands or a large spoon to thoroughly mix the egg mixture into the ground beef. Add 1 tablespoon of chopped onions and 1 tablespoon of breadcrumbs. Mix them into the meat using your fingers or a spoon. Drizzle 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil into a small baking dish and swirl to coat the bottom. Form the ground beef mixture into a large bowl and place it in the center of the baking dish. Top the meatball with 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. Place the baking dish in the oven and cook for 20 minutes. The meatball is done when it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit on an instant read thermometer. Remove from the oven and top with 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. Cover the baking dish with a sheet of aluminum foil and let it rest for 10 minutes. Enjoy hot. Recipe number 3, shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is a comforting casserole that comes to us from the United Kingdom and is traditionally made with the lamb or mutton. Today I'm making shepherd's pie with ground beef. Let's get started. First, we're going to make the mashed potatoes that will go on top of the stew. You can either make homemade mashed potatoes or use instant potatoes. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make creamy mashed potatoes that are perfect in this recipe. Scrub one medium Yukon Gold potato and cut it into quarters. It ends up being around 7 ounces, and place them in a small 1-quart saucepan. I use Yukon Gold because they're buttery and soft and they make the best mashed potatoes. Add a half of a cup of whole milk and 1 clove of chopped garlic and stir. Cook for 15 minutes until the potatoes are tender. Strain the potatoes with a fine mesh strainer over a small bowl and reserve the milk mixture. Return the potatoes to the pan or bowl and add in 1/4 cup of the milk mixture. Mash the potatoes with an immersion blender or potato masher and add additional reserved milk as needed until the potatoes are thick and creamy. Stir in 1 tablespoon of butter and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and set it aside. Now to make the stew. Heat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. In a 10-inch skillet over medium-high heat, heat 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil. Then add in 2 tablespoons of chopped onions and cook, stirring occasionally for 2 minutes. Add 1 clove of minced garlic and 4 ounces of ground beef and season with 1/4 teaspoon of Italian seasoning and 1/8 teaspoon of kosher salt. Cook, stirring occasionally until the ground beef is cooked through about 4 minutes. Stir in 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce and 1/4 cup of frozen mixed vegetables. I'm using frozen mixed vegetables because this is what I have on hand. You can use canned or fresh vegetables instead, and it doesn't have to be mixed vegetables. Add 1/4 cup of low sodium beef broth and bring to a boil over medium-high heat. Using low sodium broth allows me to control the salt content. You can use regular broth as well. Once boiling, reduce the heat to medium-low and simmer for 10 minutes, stirring occasionally until most of the liquid has evaporated. Remove the pan from the heat and set it aside. Grease a 10-ounce ramekin with butter or cooking oil spray, add the beef mixture to the ramekin, top with the mashed potatoes, and add 1 tablespoon of grated Parmesan cheese. Bake for 20 minutes. Remove from the oven and enjoy immediately. Recipe number 4, beef enchiladas. This is a wonderful beef enchilada recipe. 2 tortillas are filled with seasoned ground beef, onions, and cheese, then smothered in enchilada sauce and baked for just 20 minutes. It's a quick and easy single-serving meal. Now this is a favorite of mine, so let's make it. Heat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. In a 10-inch skillet over medium heat, heat 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Add 1/4 cup of chopped onions and cook, stirring occasionally for 2 minutes. Stir in 1 clove of minced garlic and cook for an additional minute. Add 4 ounces of ground beef, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/8 teaspoon of chili powder, and 1/8 teaspoon of ground cumin, and cook, stirring occasionally until the beef is brown, about 8 minutes. Remove the pan from the heat and transfer the cooked ground beef to a paper towel-lined plate to drain. Spread 2 to 3 tablespoons of enchilada sauce over the bottom of a small baking dish. I'm using a 5 by 7-inch dish. Warm 2 flour tortillas so they're pliable. You can use corn tortillas if you like. Place 1 tablespoon of shredded cheddar cheese in the center of each tortilla, then divide the meat evenly between each tortilla. Roll up the tortilla tightly, then arrange them in a baking dish. Pour 1/3 cup of enchilada sauce over the tops of the tortillas and sprinkle about 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar cheese over the top. Bake for 20 to 25 minutes or until the cheese has melted. Feel free to top the enchiladas with tomatoes, sliced black olives, chopped green onions, and sour cream. So there you have it, 4 single-serving meals made from just 1 pound of ground beef. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow, like, and subscribe to our channel, and check out our other recipe videos. At One Dish Kitchen, cooking for one is all we do. Bye for now.